So in a very rare occurrence where we have a memorial and yet we have a special reading for that memorial. We're supposed to continue on with the Hebrew cycle today, but it is St. Timothy and Titus, and you know that these two saints have letters written by St. Paul addressed to them that are in our New Testament. We have 1st and 2nd Timothy, and then we also have Paul's letter to St. Titus. So St. Paul writes both these letters, or all three of these letters, to these saints of today, Timothy and Titus, towards the end of his life, which means that St. Paul has had probably decades of ministry under his belt, of experiences, of joys, of starting new churches and new locations, also trials, many trials of persecution in the synagogues. As he goes into a synagogue, he preaches and often rejected. He goes into pagan temples like in Athens. And again, the people are intrigued, but then they kind of scoff at the idea of the resurrection of the dead. So a lot of joys and ministries under his belt. And I'm sure with St. Paul, like all of us, and I see it in myself, that as we progress through the years, the things that we would get excited about or upset about don't upset us or excite us as much anymore. Like you ever notice the way you treat your children and the way you raise your children are probably different than the way you did with your grandchildren. The things that you would get all worked up about and with your children now, with the grandchildren, it's like it's not it really wasn't that big of a deal. They'll be fine. That type of mentality. And I see it in priests. As the older the pastor gets, again, just what would get them upset or whatever doesn't upset them anymore. And that's the mentality of what St. Paul has. It's a beautiful letter where St. Paul really takes on this nice father figure towards a very young Timothy. And, that might be the main motivation for writing this letter, his first letter. The letter begins with, again, St. Paul's usual address and then how he's grateful for the worship that he provides, but he's also grateful for Timothy's great faith, a faith that was given to him by both his grandmom and his mother. Again, another beautiful image there. We're in 3 generations, even during the time of Paul, 3 generations of faithful Christians. And so we assume that we have this very young Timothy leading the church. And as with young leaders, sometimes the more older, powerful, influential people could take advantage of them or really give them a hard time. And that seems to be what's happening to Timothy. There must be some people within the community who have money, who have power, that are kind of just doing what they want and kind of treating Timothy as a pushover. So what does St. Paul tell him? And what does he tell us today? He says this: "For this reason, I remind you to stir into flame." Stir into flame. So think of an image of like a fireplace. And after the fire burns for a while, what happens? You have to get a stick and you got to poke at the fire. And you got to stir around the wood or the charcoal. So what? So that the flame gets the flame increases and the fire can continue to go. And so that's what St. Paul, he's poking a stick, into the soul, the faith of Timothy, getting that fire going again with the gift of God that I was given you through the imposition of my hands, ordination. Okay? St. Paul is given the gift of the Spirit by the laying on of his hands is exactly how one is ordained. And then he continues, because God did not give you, Timothy, or you and me, he did not give you a spirit of cowardice. The Spirit is not cowardly, but rather of power, love, and self-control. Self-control, think of more in lines of a balanced life, not going to the extremes. That's the spirit we have. Not cowardice, but be bold with power, love, and self-control. And do not be ashamed of your testimony to our Lord, or for me as prisoner, But you, Timothy, and you here in Mount Penn, myself, bear your share of hardship for the gospel with the strength. This is the best line here, the strength that comes from God. So yeah, there will be times where we are fearful, times maybe we're ashamed to bring out or speak about our faith. The strength doesn't come from us. It comes from the Spirit. Spirit that we all received in our sacraments of baptism and confirmation, strengthened in the Holy Eucharist. All of our strength in our vocations and our way of life comes from God. May God bless you.